He's the real family here. You're just extra. Those words from my stepmother, Evelyn, echoed in my mind like a relentless drumbeat. I lay in my hospital bed, staring at the sterile white ceiling, my fingers curling around the thin blanket covering me. My chest tightened, but not from the pain of my injuries. This wound cut much deeper. Evelyn's voice had been dripping with satisfaction, as if she had been waiting years to say that to my face. But it wasn't the insult that sent my heart racing. It was the real reason she had come to visit me, to tell me that she had drained my inheritance, the money my late mother had left me, and given it all to her son, Ryan. "Thanks for letting me know," I said, my voice even, almost indifferent. She had expected rage. She had expected me to scream, to beg, to break down. Instead, I watched the slight twitch of confusion on her face, the falter in her smug expression. That was the moment she should have realized she had underestimated me. I was weak, I was hurting, but I was not powerless. I should have seen it coming. My mother had passed away when I was 17, after a long and exhausting battle with cancer. She had been my world, my anchor. Before she died, she made sure my future was secure, setting up a trust fund in my name so I wouldn't have to struggle. She knew my father, though he loved me, wasn't the most responsible with money. But then, just 2 years later, Evelyn entered our lives. She wasn't the evil stepmother at first. No, she played the long game. She was careful, making sure my father saw only what she wanted him to see. She pretended to care for me while slowly working her way into his heart and into our finances. By the time I was in my 20s, I had learned to keep my distance. I didn't fight for my father's attention the way Ryan did because, deep down, I knew I would always be second place in his eyes. I focused on my studies, then my career, and stayed away from the tangled mess of their household. But then, a car accident changed everything. The night of the accident was a blur. A drunk driver ran a red light, slamming into the side of my car at full speed. The impact sent my vehicle spinning across the intersection before everything faded to black. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed, my body aching, my mind foggy from painkillers. My left leg was in a brace, my ribs felt like they had been set on fire, and my head throbbed with a dull, relentless pain. The doctors told me I had been lucky. If the impact had been just a few inches to the right, I might not have survived. At first, I thought the worst part was the recovery, the endless physical therapy, the excruciating effort it took just to get out of bed. But I was wrong. The real pain came when Evelyn walked into my hospital room, her expression carefully composed, her voice sweet but laced with something colder. "You should focus on getting better," she said, pulling up a chair beside my bed. "Money is the last thing you should be worrying about right now." The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. "What do you mean?" My voice was hoarse, my throat dry. "I know your mother left you that trust fund," she said, as if she were discussing the weather. "But you don't need it. Ryan does. He's your father's real family. You're just extra." I stared at her, my pulse pounding in my ears. "You took it." My voice came out quieter than I intended. She smiled. "It's already done. Every last cent is in Ryan's name. He's going to do something meaningful with it. He has dreams, a future. You'll be fine, Sophia. You always land on your feet." She patted my hand as if she were offering me words of comfort instead of telling me she had stolen everything my mother had left me. That's when I said it. "Thanks for letting me know." And I smiled because, while Evelyn thought she had won, she had no idea what I had already set in motion. That night, alone in my hospital room, I reached for my phone and pulled up my emails. I found the one I had received months ago, the one from my mother's lawyer, Mr. Caldwell. I had suspected Evelyn was up to something for a while now, and my mother, She had always taught me to be prepared. I tapped out a message, my fingers steady despite the storm raging inside me. She finally did it. It's time. And then I waited. Evelyn thought she had drained my inheritance. She thought she had left me with nothing bombing. But she had no idea. She had just made the biggest mistake of her life. Evelyn thought she had won. She had walked out of my hospital room with a victorious smirk, believing she had stripped me of everything my mother had left behind. But she didn't know that my mother had taught me something more valuable than money. She had taught me to always stay 3 steps ahead. As the hospital lights flickered dimly in the quiet hours of the night, my phone vibrated in my hand. A new email from Mr. Caldwell. Understood. Everything is in place. I'll proceed immediately. Relief flooded through me, but it was laced with anticipation. I had been waiting for this moment, preparing for it. Evelyn thought she had drained my inheritance, but she had no idea that my mother had never trusted her, and for good reason. Months before the accident, I had met with Mr. Caldwell after he alerted me to some unusual activity around my trust. At first, I had brushed it off as paranoia. Evelyn had always been greedy, but I never thought she'd actually go through with it. But then I started noticing the little things. Ryan suddenly had a new car. Evelyn was taking extravagant vacations. My father, oblivious as ever, thought nothing of it. But I knew better. That's when Mr. Caldwell had laid out the safeguards my mother had put in place. The trust fund wasn't just a simple bank account. My mother had been meticulous. It was protected by a secondary hidden clause, one that required my explicit consent before any major withdrawal could be made. Evelyn had managed to fake the paperwork, forge signatures, and lie her way into accessing the funds. But what she didn't know was that every unauthorized transaction was being flagged, logged, and investigated. And now she had committed bank fraud. The best part? She had no idea. The next morning, a nurse came to check my vitals. My ribs still ached with every breath, but the pain didn't bother me as much as it had the day before. Because today was the beginning of the end for Evelyn. I grabbed my phone and dialed a number I knew by heart. My father answered on the second ring. Sophia. His voice was laced with concern. Is everything okay? I took a deep breath. Dad, we need to talk about Evelyn and about my inheritance. A long silence stretched between us. Then he sighed. Sophia, I know you're upset, but Evelyn is just trying to help Ryan. This isn't about Ryan, I interrupted. It's about what she did. She stole from me, Dad. She forged my signature and emptied my trust fund. That's a crime. Silence. For a second, I wondered if the call had dropped. Then his voice came back, shaky and uncertain. That can't be true. She wouldn't. I have proof, Dad. I could hear the conflict in his voice. He wanted to believe me, but Evelyn had spent years controlling the narrative, twisting everything to her advantage. She had done this to us before. She had convinced him I was ungrateful when I left for college without looking back. She had made him believe that Ryan deserved more because I had already been given so much. But now she had crossed a line even he couldn't ignore. I'm sending you everything, I said firmly. Read it, then call me back. I hung up before he could say anything else. By the time I was discharged from the hospital 3 days later, the first domino had already fallen. My father had seen the bank statements, the forged documents, the evidence from Mr. Caldwell, and he was furious. He called me, his voice thick with anger and disbelief. She lied to me for years. She stole from you, Sophia. I don't even know what to say. Say you'll handle it, Dad, because if you don't, I will. He was quiet for a moment, then exhaled sharply. I'll take care of it. I promise. But promises meant nothing to me now. I had spent too many years waiting for him to see Evelyn for who she truly was. I wasn't going to sit back and hope that he did the right thing, because Evelyn had spent years planning this betrayal. Now, it was my turn. Evelyn must have sensed something was wrong because, later that night, she called me. Her voice was still syrupy sweet, but now there was a tinge of something else underneath, uncertainty. Sophia, sweetheart, I know you must be upset, but this is just a misunderstanding. You weren't using the money, and Ryan— Stop, I said, cutting her off. Stop talking, Evelyn. Silence. I smiled. Now she knew she wasn't dealing with the quiet, obedient stepdaughter she had manipulated for years. I know what you did, I said, my voice steady. And I hope you enjoyed it because it's over now. The bank has already flagged your transactions. The fraud investigation is underway. Dad knows everything. It's falling apart, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. The sharp inhale on the other end of the line told me she finally understood. For the first time, Evelyn was afraid, and she should be. Because I was just getting started. Evelyn had spent years building her perfect little empire, crafting the illusion of a devoted wife, a caring stepmother, and a woman who always had our family's best interests at heart. But now, that empire was starting to crack, and I wasn't going to stop until I tore it down completely. The morning after our call, I sat in my apartment, sipping the first real cup of coffee I'd had in weeks. My ribs still ached from the accident, but the pain barely registered anymore. My phone buzzed. Dad. I let it ring twice before answering. What did she say? I asked, skipping the formalities. He sighed heavily, the kind of sigh that carried years of regret. She denied everything at first, said you were making it up, that you were confused from your accident, that maybe you misunderstood what she meant about the money. I rolled my eyes. Classic Evelyn. Lie, manipulate, gaslight. And then, I asked, picturing the moment in my head. Evelyn sitting in our living room, her carefully curated world crumbling as my father, her greatest pawn, finally saw her for who she was. She broke down, he said. Started crying, said she was just trying to help Ryan, that it wasn't fair that you got so much while he had nothing. She said you didn't need the money. I clenched my jaw. And did you believe her? Another sigh. I don't know what to believe anymore, Sophia. His voice was quiet, tired. But I do know one thing. She lied to me. She stole from you. And now I have to figure out what to do next. Figure it out fast, Dad. My voice was steady, controlled. Because the bank isn't waiting. Neither is the lawyer. You need to decide whose side you're on. I didn't give him time to respond before hanging up. I wasn't going to beg him to do the right thing. He had to choose. And if he didn't, I had no problem handling this myself. Later that afternoon, I got a text from an unknown number. Meet me at the cafe on 5th. 1 hour, please. I stared at the message. I didn't need to ask who it was. I already knew. And I was more than ready. The cafe was mostly empty when I arrived, the late afternoon lull keeping the usual crowd away. I spotted her immediately, Evelyn, sitting in the corner, sunglasses perched on her face even though we were indoors. Her hands were wrapped around a cup of tea, but she wasn't drinking it. Her fingers tapped anxiously against the porcelain, betraying her nerves. I took my time walking over, savoring the moment. When I sat down across from her, she lifted her head, and for the first time in my life, Evelyn looked nervous. You wanted to talk? I asked, leaning back in my chair. She took a deep breath, then removed her sunglasses, revealing red-rimmed eyes. The act was almost convincing. Sophia, sweetheart, don't... I cut her off. We're not going to pretend this is some kind of misunderstanding. You knew exactly what you were doing. Her jaw tightened, but she quickly replaced her frustration with something softer. I made a mistake, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I was thinking about Ryan. I just wanted him to have a chance at a good life. I let out a small laugh. A good life with my money? The money my mother left for me? She winced but didn't look away. I didn't mean to hurt you. I tilted my head. So what now? You want my forgiveness? You want me to tell my father to give you another chance? Silence. That's exactly what she wanted. She had spent her life manipulating people. My father, Ryan, even me when I was younger. But she had never dealt with this version of me before. I leaned forward, lowering my voice just enough to make sure she felt the weight of my words. You're done, Evelyn. You can cry. You can lie. You can beg. It doesn't matter anymore. The bank is investigating. The lawyer has enough evidence to move forward. Dad knows everything. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for her tea. What are you going to do? She whispered. I smiled. Me, I'm going to sit back and watch everything you built collapse around you. Her face paled. And the best part, I continued, taking my time, savoring the moment. There's nothing you can do to stop it. By the time I got home, the news had already spread. My father called again, his voice hoarse. I told her to leave, he said. I closed my eyes, exhaling slowly. And Ryan? A pause. He's furious. He thinks I betrayed him. I expected that. Ryan had always seen me as the outsider, the unwanted stepdaughter. Evelyn had made sure of it. He'll figure it out, I said. One day. My father didn't respond. Maybe he already knew that Ryan would never forgive him for choosing me over Evelyn. And Evelyn, I asked? Another sigh. She's not taking it well. She thinks I'll change my mind. But I won't. For the first time, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Good, I said. Because this is just the beginning. Because Evelyn wasn't just going to lose my father. She was going to lose everything. And the next step? That was going to be my favorite part. Evelyn had spent years weaving a web of deception. She had convinced herself she was untouchable, that no matter what she did, she would always land on her feet. But now, for the first time in her life, she was falling. 3 days after our meeting at the cafe, I got a call from Mr. Caldwell. She's in trouble, he said. I smirked. Oh, do tell. The bank has escalated the fraud case. Their legal team is involved now, and with the evidence we provided, Evelyn is looking at serious consequences. We've also submitted everything to the district attorney's office. It's just a matter of time before they move forward with formal charges. I had expected this, but hearing it out loud was still satisfying. How long do you think she has? I asked, twirling a pen between my fingers. A few weeks at most. But here's the interesting part. She's trying to stall. Her lawyer reached out saying she wants to settle privately. I let out a short laugh. Of course she does. She's hoping if she throws money at the problem, it'll go away. Exactly, he said. She's desperate, Sophia, and desperate people make mistakes. I leaned back in my chair, my mind already working through the possibilities. Evelyn was trying to buy her way out. She still thought she had some control left, that she could manipulate her way to safety. But there was one major flaw in her plan. She had already spent my money, and now she had nothing left to bargain with. That evening, I received an unexpected visitor, Ryan. I opened my apartment door to find him standing there, his expression unreadable. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept in days. "What do you want?" I asked, crossing my arms. He let out a slow breath. "We need to talk." I considered slamming the door in his face, but something in his voice made me hesitate. For the first time ever, Ryan wasn't speaking to me with arrogance or entitlement. He sounded lost. I stepped aside. "Fine, you have 5 minutes." He walked in, looking around like he had never actually noticed my place before. I stayed by the door, waiting. "You destroyed my mother," he finally said. "She's losing everything." I raised an eyebrow. "She did that to herself." He clenched his jaw. "She didn't mean to hurt you." I let out a sharp laugh. "You mean she didn't mean to get caught?" He flinched but didn't argue. Good, at least he was starting to see reality. "So, why are you really here?" I asked. He hesitated before answering. "She has nowhere to go. My dad kicked her out. She's trying to figure out what to do next." I leaned against the wall, tilting my head. "Let me guess. She sent you here to convince me to drop everything." Ryan looked away. "She doesn't know I came." That caught me off guard. "Then why did you—" He let out a long breath. "Because I don't know what to believe anymore. My whole life, she told me you were the problem. That you were selfish. That you had it easy while I struggled." I stared at him, waiting. "But now," he continued, "I see the truth. She's the selfish one. She lied to me. She used me. And now that she has nothing left, she expects me to clean up the mess." There it was, the realization that had taken far too long to hit him. "And what do you want from me, Ryan?" I asked, my voice even. He met my gaze. "I want to make things right, but I don't know how." I didn't let him off the hook easily. For years, he had stood by Evelyn's side, enabling her manipulations. He had benefited from my money, my losses. And now that things had gone south, he wanted to separate himself from her. Too little. Too late. "You don't get to play the victim now, Ryan." My voice was sharp, and I saw him flinch. "You didn't care when she took my inheritance. You didn't care when she pushed me out of my own family. You only care now because she's finally losing." He exhaled. "You're right. That surprised me. I was blind," he admitted. "I let her manipulate me just like she did to everyone else. But I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I just want to help fix what I can." I studied him for a moment. He looked different, like the weight of finally seeing the truth was crushing him. I wasn't sure if I believed he had truly changed, but I knew one thing. I could use this. "Fine," I finally said. "You want to make things right? Then listen carefully." Ryan straightened, looking at me warily. "Evelyn is trying to settle privately because she knows she's screwed. She doesn't have the money to pay me back. And once this goes to trial, she could be looking at serious consequences." He nodded slowly. "So, what do you want me to do?" I smirked. "Simple. Make her believe you're still on her side. Let her think she has a way out." His brows furrowed. "You want me to lie to her?" "She lied to you for years, Ryan. You owe her nothing." He hesitated, but then nodded. "Okay, what's the plan?" And just like that, I had my next move. Evelyn thought she still had a sliver of control. She was wrong, because now she had nowhere left to run. Evelyn was desperate. She had spent years manipulating everyone around her, but now she had no more cards to play. She had lost my father, she had lost Ryan's blind loyalty, and soon she was going to lose everything else. Ryan played his part well. The next morning, he texted me. "She took the bait. She thinks I'm on her side." I smirked. Evelyn had always underestimated me. She thought she could still wiggle her way out of this, that she could convince Ryan to help her, that she could find a loophole. But the walls were already closing in. That afternoon, Ryan met Evelyn for lunch. I told him exactly what to say. "Mom, we need to act fast," he said, his voice low. "Sophia's going to push this to trial. Once that happens, you'll have no control over the outcome." Evelyn bit her lip, her eyes darting around nervously. "I know, sweetheart. I just need to figure something out." "There's only one way," Ryan said, lowering his voice. "You need to get to Sophia before this escalates. Offer her whatever she wants if you have to. Make her believe you're willing to fix things." She swallowed hard. "You think she'll drop it?" Ryan hesitated, then nodded. "She just wants to be repaid, Mom. If you show her you're willing to make things right, she might back off." Evelyn didn't hesitate. "Fine, I'll talk to her. I'll do whatever it takes." Exactly what I had been waiting for. That evening, my phone rang. Evelyn's number. I let it ring twice before answering. "Sophia," she breathed out, her voice soft, calculated. "I've been thinking about everything, and I realize now that I made a terrible mistake." I said nothing. Let her talk. I let my desperation cloud my judgment. I was only trying to help Ryan, but I see now that I went about it the wrong way. I smirked. Of course, she was still making excuses. "I want to fix this," she continued, her voice shaking slightly. "I don't want this to go to trial. I want to make things right with you. What can I do?" There it was, the moment I had been waiting for. "You stole from me, Evelyn," I said, my voice even. "If you're serious about fixing this, then pay me back. Every cent." Silence. Then a nervous chuckle. "Sophia, sweetheart, you know I don't have that kind of money anymore." I let out a short laugh. "Then we don't have anything to talk about." She panicked. "Wait! There's another way. Maybe we can work something out. I can talk to your father, ask him to—" "No," my voice was sharp. "This isn't his mess to clean up. This is yours. If you can't pay me back, then you'll have to face the consequences." Her breath hitched. What do you mean?" "You'll see soon enough," I said. And with that, I hung up. Let her sit with the fear. Let her feel what it's like to be powerless. 2 days later, Evelyn got a visit. Not from me, from the authorities. Ryan texted me the moment it happened. They took her. A fraud investigator had gathered all the evidence Mr. Caldwell and I had compiled. The forged signatures, the fraudulent bank transfers, the illegal mismanagement of my inheritance. It was enough to charge her. The bank had officially reported her for financial fraud, and the district attorney's office had taken the case. Evelyn had stolen hundreds of thousands of dollars that didn't belong to her, and now she was facing criminal charges. I didn't go to the courthouse when she was processed. I didn't need to. Instead, I spent the afternoon with my father. He sat across from me at my kitchen table, rubbing his temples. "I still can't believe it," he murmured, "that I let her fool me for so long." I took a sip of my coffee. "She was good at what she did." He let out a humorless laugh. "Yeah, she was." A long silence stretched between us. Then finally he looked at me. "I'm sorry, Sophia, for everything. For not believing you sooner. For letting Evelyn treat you like you were less than. For choosing her over you." I met his gaze, I know, and for the first time in years I saw it in his eyes. Real regret. Maybe things would never be the same between us. Maybe there were wounds too deep to fully heal. But this was a start. Evelyn's trial was set for 3 months later. She managed to avoid jail time with a plea deal, but she was left with nothing. She was forced to pay restitution to me, meaning every dime she earned for the foreseeable future was going to repay what she had stolen. She had to sell her luxury car. She had to leave the house she had once ruled over like a queen. She had lost everything. Ryan, surprisingly, cut ties with her completely. I can't keep defending someone who never really cared about me, he told me in one of our last conversations. He moved out of state a few months later, trying to rebuild his life away from the shadow of our mother. I didn't hate him anymore, but I also didn't waste time feeling sorry for him. We all make our own choices. And Evelyn, she made hers. Now she had to live with the consequences. That night, as I sat alone in my apartment, I pulled out a photo of my mother. She had always taught me to be strong, to be prepared, to never let anyone take advantage of me. "I did it, Mom," I whispered, running a finger along the edge of the photo. I made sure she paid for what she did. And for the first time in years, I felt at peace. For years, I had lived under Evelyn's shadow. She had manipulated, stolen, and deceived. She had tried to take everything from me, my security, my future, even my place in my own family. But now, she was nothing more than a bad memory. 3 months had passed since Evelyn had taken the plea deal. She was officially a convicted fraudster. Her reputation was in ruins, her bank accounts drained by legal fees and restitution payments. The house she once ruled over was gone, sold off to cover her debts. And Ryan, he had left town, trying to find a life away from the damage Evelyn had caused. Good, because I was moving forward too. I sat in my new office, looking over some paperwork, when my phone buzzed. A text from Mr. Caldwell. "Final restitution payment has been confirmed. Everything is officially settled." I stared at the message for a long moment, letting it sink in. For years, Evelyn had controlled my fate. For years, she had stolen, manipulated, and taken what wasn't hers. But now, she owed me. Every single dollar she had tried to take was back where it belonged. I had won. And more importantly, I was free. That evening, I went to visit my father. He had moved into a smaller house after selling the one he and Evelyn had lived in. It was quieter, simpler. I found him sitting on the porch, staring out at the trees, lost in thought. "You look like a man who's thinking too much," I said, stepping onto the wooden deck. He chuckled, shaking his head. "That obvious, huh?" I sat down next to him. "What's on your mind?" he sighed. "Just looking back, wondering how I let things get so out of control." I watched him carefully. For so long, I had been angry with him. Angry that he had let Evelyn treat me like an outsider. Angry that he had believed her over me. Angry that he had failed me. But now I just saw a man who had finally opened his eyes. "You wanted to believe the best in her," I said finally. "That's not a crime. But ignoring the truth, that's where you went wrong." He nodded slowly. "I know. And I'll never forgive myself for that." I hesitated. There had been a time when I thought I'd never forgive him either. But sitting here now, I realized something. I didn't need an apology. I just needed him to show me that he had changed. "Then don't," I said softly. "Just be better." He looked at me, something unreadable in his expression. Then he nodded. "I will." And for the first time in years, I actually believed him. A week later, I stood outside the building that housed my new business. It was a small but growing consulting firm, one I had built from the ground up using the money my mother had left me, the money Evelyn had tried to steal. Now, that money was helping other women rebuild their lives after financial betrayal. Because I wasn't the only one who had ever been manipulated, stolen from, or made to feel powerless. And if I could use my experience to help someone else, then every moment of pain had been worth it. On the 1-year anniversary of my mother's passing, my father and I visited her grave together. We placed fresh lilies, her favorite, on the grass, standing in silence for a long moment. Then, my father pulled something from his pocket and handed it to me, a worn letter, my mother's handwriting. I found this while going through some of her things, he said quietly. My hands trembled slightly as I unfolded it. My dearest Sophia, it read. I don't know what the future holds, but I know this. You are stronger than you realize. Life may test you. People may try to take from you. But never forget who you are. You are not weak. You are not powerless. You are my daughter, and you are meant to build something greater than the pain others inflict upon you. No matter what happens, never let them take away the fire inside of you. I believe in you, always. With all my love, Mom. I closed my eyes, holding the letter to my chest. My mother had known. She had always known that one day I would have to fight for what was mine. And I had. And I had won. As I walked back to my car, my father fell into step beside me. What are you thinking about? He asked. I glanced over at him, then back at the sky. That it's over, I said, and that I'm finally ready to move on. He nodded, and for the first time in a long time, I felt free.